You are the owner and founder of the Connective Human. And so we are so excited to learn about your company and what services you have to offer. But as a reminder, the first half of the show for our listeners, it's all about education, innovation, business, startup, all of that kind of good stuff. And how are we going to be moving into the future 5 years from now? So Robin's going to go ahead and kick us off. Robin is my intern that does the show with me. This is her last week. So
Yes.
this is major.
Huge.
So, Beau, tell us first all about your educational background, as well as any jobs, internships, or professional experiences that led up to the creation of your company, Connective Human. So tell us your story.
And just
All right,
so
so
that was
yeah,
a real fire department going past us. So don't know if
Fire
we can
truck.
get that out or not, but we'll see. That adds to the ambiance of the show for sure. For sure.
it does. Oh yeah, we'll roll with it, guys. So first off, I want to tell you thank you for having me. I think it's very important, the type of collaboration that we're currently doing, which I know we'll get into, Isabella, and for this to be probably like what, your last podcast today. So it was nice to meet you. And so, yep, my name is Beau Blouin. I'm 34 years old. I'm currently in Orlando, Florida, but I didn't start out there. I was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas, and I spent 20 years there. So when I was getting out of high school, I didn't put a whole lot of time and energy into my own really like personal development as far as academics is concerned. I mainly focused on sports and really just kind of making the bare minimum grades that I needed so I could play football on Friday nights. So that was kind of what kind of how I was as a teenager. But as I
Let me guess. Were you a quarterback?
No, I did a little bit. I was an average high school player, so I wasn't that good, but I was a little bit above average. But I played a little bit of everything on both sides of the ball. So, but again, I'm not a very big guy, so I always knew that college wasn't really in my equation for sports. But it's the one thing that at least kept me to school and allowed me to graduate. So I graduated in 2005 from high school, and then I kind of bounced around from odd jobs, from delivering landscape to working in landscape to cleaning up job sites, and then I ended up working at the post office, believe it or not, when I was 20 years old. And I thought I was going to make a career out of that. And I pivoted and went to the Marine Corps instead, and spent 9 years in the Marine Corps as an intelligence analyst. So I was able to get some pretty cool skills under my belt. I had a lot of training involved when it comes to being an intelligence professional and different types of intelligence roles that I had to do and duties. And I did that for 9 years. And while I was going through it, I transitioned from California, from a very high operational role of being deployed all the time and coming back home. And I got really tired of that, and I wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to help, young adults or teenagers that may have went through some of the experiences that I went through. My family did experience some challenging times when I was a teenager, so I was forced to really deal with a lot of stuff that some people don't get to deal with. And I wanted to work with kids that way. I wanted to work with kids that may have felt some form of displacement from their families, kids that may have felt some type of abandonment that I felt because my father had left me. And I just wanted to really help young adults become healthy, mature adults. So after my last 2 years in the Marine Corps, I started a foundation called Fit for Truth, where we worked with foster kids. And while I did that, that's when my real professional journey started that landed me where I'm at today. So I went into, got some mindset certifications, went through some nonprofit courses, and then really built a small nonprofit and ran it for about 3 years, where we worked with about 1,000 foster kids across the state of Florida. And we taught them life skills through retreats, because we were like, hey, as military, people that are in the military and soon to be veterans, what can we do, and what skills can we bestow on these kids based on our training? And so we basically ran all these really cool team building events, a lot of retreats and workshops where we paired corporations with these kids to teach them life skills. And then that kind of transitioned now to where we're at, where now we work solely with corporations and we teach growth mindset to corporations. So that's kind of my background in a nutshell. I did go to college for a couple of years. Like I just got a basic associate's degree. But while I was going to college and taking some courses, I realized that some of the things that I was learning at that time weren't applicable when it comes to business development. for me. Like I was learning a lot of stuff about marketing and I was learning about business, but as far as like what I needed at the time was to get really good at business development, like telling my story and bring people into our programs. I decided that to hold off on that and then just grow the organization and do that specifically. Now, I don't really recommend that for everyone. I think that your skill set has to match it. But for me, at a certain point in time, sitting in a classroom for doing night classes 3 hours a week, 5 hours at a night wasn't applicable to growing the business that I'd started. So I kind of stopped doing that and just built the business.
Yeah, so you went through the entrepreneur journey based on the fact that you started a nonprofit. And I think starting a nonprofit is even harder than a for-profit business because you're asking people for donations. That's obviously discretionary funds, and they'll either give it to you or they won't. People that focus on pets, children, and anything that's in that space of human services, I'm going to say even environment, I think, are usually the top priority. So you chose well by selecting to focus on kids.
Yeah, and
Best kid story that you saw positive outcome.
oh man, so
Oh my God, this was awesome.
yeah, we have a few. We have from working with some teenagers that have been trafficked, right? Teenage girls that have been trafficked, and going from and seeing a young woman at like 15 years old, or young girl at 15 years old, very skinny, malnourished, and just very skittish around really anyone, until like a 2-year period of where they're healthy, they look much better, they have no problem talking to adults, they have more trust in themselves and trust in adults. To see that kind of transformation from kids that have been trafficked, honestly, is something that was a blessing for everyone involved. I think not only the little bit amount of time that our organization had with these kids, but with the transformation that some of the services that the state of Florida is providing really helped them. And I'm telling you, that was pretty magnificent to see some kids start businesses and us help them with that. That was a lot of fun. And then really, I think on just like on a practicality level, like those were big wins, but on the majority of where I saw the most growth is really just allowing these kids to have opportunities that they wouldn't have before, and to show them that some of these opportunities is not outside of their reach. It's actually very possible for them to go into things that they love and to go into vocations and get some type of either vocation training or something to get into what they love, and for us to introduce them to that, and then kind of whoever we introduce them to, let that relationship flourish. I think that was probably our most consistent win that we saw with the kids, with the
So
services
what
that
was
we
the
provided.
age group of the kids that you were helping?
So we worked from really kindergarten all the way up until 19 years old. So we would do retreats and events just for the little ones and just have a lot of fun and be kids. And then we would do some more in-depth emotional training, mindset training, and spiritual training with some of the older kids through some of our retreats. So we really tried to tailor that specifically to whoever we were working with. And we was from about 6 years old to 19 years old were the kids that we worked with.
So you mentioned spiritual also. Is that part of what makes you who you are too, your spiritual life?
Absolutely. It's probably the one thing that's allowed me to keep a pretty even balance when different extremes go on in my life, from experiencing some hardships and abandonment whenever I was younger, having to be displaced from my home. And then you add some of the compounding trauma of war on top of that. I think the one thing is just my unique faith, but not really faith. It's just applying some spiritual principles that I think everybody can use, like tolerance for whenever when we have done something that we don't really like, and we're hard on ourselves. We should be tolerant on ourselves first, and then we'll become more tolerant of other people. Patience, service to our fellow humans. There's just a host of different principles that I like to use, really from a spiritual perspective, that I think has kept me pretty grounded for the most part.
I was saying this to Stephanie also. It's I call it grace, and grace is the thing that it's more important than forgiveness, more important than anything else that I can get, whether it's mercy. I like grace, and it falls under that tolerance.
It does.
Like, you don't deserve this, but I am extending it to you, and it's just like, I'm not going to say I told you so or anything.
Yeah, but what I learned though is like when we really become ungraceful to ourselves, right? And that just means when we're not acting in line with what we really want to do. Like, for instance, if we allow someone to trigger us and we treat them improperly, we should give ourselves grace first. right?
Oh, yeah.
And intolerance first. And so there's this whole thing of like, well, we should give it to other people. Wait a minute. Really need to practice on giving it to ourselves.
Mhm.
And I promise you, when that happens, that actually frees up space, right? It frees up
Yes.
space so we can allow more graceful and tolerant things to show up for us as well. And especially when we're going through hardship, that's when we really need to apply.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. So you joined the military.
Mhm.
People that I was speaking with last week, her name is Michelle. She knew she wanted to be in the Air Force. She went in on the day she turned 16 and said, okay, I want to join. And the
Wow.
recruiter told her, no, I'm not even allowed to talk to you. Turn around and go away. You can come back when you're 17. And so she did, and her parents signed her up. She got in at 17, 20 years later, a career in the Air Force, and she can be very entrepreneurial. I think that's the discipline that you get from the military is something that helps you to probably be more successful as an entrepreneur. What do you think?
I think so. I think there's like a few ways to look at it. For me, it was definitely the discipline. And I grew up a little bit. It forced me to mature a little bit more
Mhm.
from a wake up and do your job and not only do it, but try to do it really well with the skills that you have. Like try to find out what your skills are and really focus on those in that job that you have. And that really takes you a lot of places. But I also think too is because you're so regimented and everything you do is really broken down to like the finest detail, especially in some of the units that I was at. Like, this is what you will do. This is what we need. You're an enabler. This is how we need you to operate so we can be efficient. And so you really get used to having a lot of top down cover. And I always wanted to see personally what I could do with my skill set when there's not a full chain of command and a lot of resources getting funneled into me. I wanted to see if I could still operate at a high level creatively and tap into my own creative gifts. So the discipline, I think, makes good entrepreneurs. And I think we all have different reasons. And that was one of mine, is to say like, hey, what can I do now? Like, I saw success on a certain level in the military. Can I do the same thing, but with my passion? Can I do the same thing, but with what I really want to do in this world is to focus on giving back and trying to help create, healthy humans. So.
Mm. Um, so this was not even anything that I had asked you about, but Stephanie mentioned a book called 5 a.m. I don't know if you've heard of this book, but I was just looking it up while we were here. It's the 5 a.m. book, and it's a resource guide to achievers. What's the best book that you've read?
Ooh, man, there's a lot of really good books that I've read. Oh man, I'm trying to think of the last one that I read that's really changed my life. I mean, honestly, this is a pretty classic one, but Meditations from Marcus Aurelius. It's his personal diary, and when you're talking about one of the most powerful men in the world at that time, dealing with the plague, dealing with war, dealing with famine, dealing with people inside of his own empire that want to basically dethrone him. When you think about that, and if you look at his personal diary and the stuff that he wrote, it's the stuff that you and I are talking about now, and this was thousands of years ago. And he basically breaks it down and says, look, you have to be tolerant, you have to be patient. It doesn't matter how much power you have. You have to treat others with the way you want to be treated. He breaks down all these beautiful, wonderful tenets as an emperor that didn't have to do any of that. He could do whatever he wanted. And that to me was one of the most humbling books I ever read, because when you think about the problems of his age, right? Didn't we just go through our own pandemic? Like he was going through the plague. Like we just went through our own pandemic. Haven't we gone through war for the last 18, 19 years? Because I've been a part of it for the last 11, right?
Mhm.
He was going through war. So my point is that like what occurs to us under the human condition largely doesn't really change that much. Just the technology and the way that we do it changes. So what they were going through thousands and thousands of years ago, like we're going through right now. What can we take from people that probably didn't have the life expectancy that we have and the medical advances that we have and all this information at our fingertips? What can we take from that? To me, that book peeled all the layers away, and it gives you a couple of things to think about, some tenets to live under, from somebody that again has more power than we'll ever experience.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's why I loved it.
My favorite book is The Purpose Driven Life. It's actually one that we did in church, as a whole church, and it's a 40-day journey into finding your purpose. I really loved it because I actually put the first page of the first chapter on my vision board, and the first line, the first sentence is, "It is not all about you." And I sat there and went, that is so true. It is not all about me. But yet it is to some extent, because we are the ones that if we choose to speak with somebody, then we can change their life. So yes, it is about how do you want to be treated, and making sure that you're treating people with respect, right? And inclusion, and making them feel welcomed and a part of whatever it is that's going on. That's really important. But it's also about being able to just realize that we're here to serve. I think, I mean, this is my belief, that following servant leadership is we're here to serve others. We're not here just for us. So, yes, it is about, it's always about other people. That's customer experience, that's employee experience, but it is also about how we can make that a better world for others, but also for us. It always comes back 10 times, don't you think?
It does. It does. And I think it has to start with the individual. Like we have to learn how to, in our daily routine, our daily lives, kind of have that approach and operate that way so we can
Mhm,
serve the others. Because,
mhm,
I learned, and again, like when I first started the nonprofit work, I was still dealing with some side effects from being overseas so long and going through what I went through. I was still dealing with some of those side effects. And service equals healing. I believe that. Like I believe service equals
mhm.
healing. That's one of the tenets inside of our company, Connective Human. But I realized like if I'm not really serving from a balanced perspective, like if I'm only serving the community because I think just doing this is going to heal me or it's going to make me better, that's not the truth. There's some other things involved. So I had to learn I had to learn that lesson as well. That goes back to your point. We have to really know that internally and work on ourselves first.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So we jumped around a little bit here, but we're going to get us back on track here. So tell us about Connective Human. Why did you start it? What is it all about? That why. That's always, as Simon Sinek says, the why.
Yeah. So it was like 2016 going into 2017. And after working in the community for a couple of years, seeing growth, what I'd realized is there's a greater need to come up with a more inclusive program to connect corporations to nonprofits, which there's tons out there and they do a great job. But for us, with working with aging out foster kids and working out with teenage foster kids, what we wanted to do is, have the ability to have more flexibility to go out and train corporations in what we saw made a lot of impact. So for instance, when we were going through those retreats and employees would come to us that, let's say they donated $7,500 for a retreat, right? So when I was running the nonprofit at the time, I'd come from a different angle, like, hey, would you like to come with us? Like, don't just donate, like come experience this with us, with the kids, and look at the growth that we can have and look what the growth that your employees can have by serving for a day. And let's come together and do that. And so while that was happening, that was great, but then it would kind of go away, right? That the employees would go back, the corporations, we're very grateful for it, but they would go back and doing their own thing and the kids would do their own thing. We didn't see a long-term strategy of keeping them connected, right, to what matters to the corporation. Meaning, I just cold-called and made a relationship, and then I told my story and pitched the corporation. They gave me $7,500. Their employees went, then everybody went away. We're like, wait a minute, this model works. Let's just reverse it. Now let's be in their lives long term. Let's create a company called Connective Human, and let's connect humans to themselves through growth mindset training, and then let's connect them to their community with whoever they want to serve, whether it's working with underprivileged children, whether it's foster children, aging out foster youth, women, homeless persons. We wanted to really anything. Like we want to say, okay, we want the operational flexibility, not to be hamstrung by some of the restrictions that we have, but we know we provide a service in teaching people how to connect with themselves through understanding how their mind works, helping them understand what their limitations are. Let's train them on that. And then let's go take that into the community wherever they want to go. We know the nonprofit world. We ran a small nonprofit. We know how to talk to nonprofits. So why don't we just connect them? And why don't we create this connective human culture within our city? And then let's create that connective human culture in other cities, right? But it starts with everybody understanding we're on the same page to let's understand ourselves. Let's understand our corporate culture and how we align with that. Let's create a system to become more communicative, right? And create a more inclusive opportunities for everyone. And then let's give that back into the community. And so that's really what we do. We take organizations through 3 and 4 months of growth mindset training, where we sit down and we teach them our 4 pillars, and we help employees reduce stress, We help their business development. We help with communication, right? We help with, different limitations that some of these employees think they have. We help them break that out and understand it. And we kind of integrate them back into their team where, they have a more healthy culture, a more healthy climate, which helps with their healthcare costs and a bunch of other things. And once we do that, and we teach them these methods and we check up on them, then we create events around what they learn so they can serve those things to other humans that they want to serve. And that's what we were missing from the nonprofit realm. We were solely focused on our bylaws and how we were written. This is who we're going to serve and this is how we're going to do it. And we saw there's just a huge need, Isabel, there's a huge need to get humans to understand really how connected we are, how to teach them how to connect with themselves, and then give that back to the community.
I agree. I have similar beliefs. I approach it differently. I think everything is like dating. And that's my little tagline. Everything's like dating. We pick our significant others, but we even relate to our family that way. But it's really where we spend the most time in the workplace is with those that we work with. So we should be treating that relationship with respect and also realizing that we will disagree. We need to be able to come together. We need to be able to support each other because we are all human and we're messy people as it is. We have emotions, we have fears, and just being able to, I'm going to use your words, connect with each other in a more caring way that demonstrates kindness and true listening. I think it's going to make it a better world. So I think you and I run on parallel paths that overlap.
We do.
They support each other. So I could not be more excited. But let's take a minute to talk about how we met too. It's through the Avalon program.
Oh, we have to give a shout out to them.
Let's give them a shout out for sure. So you applied to Avalon and it was a rigorous process, right? Business plan, financials, all kinds of attachments that submit that we're a legit business. And then the interview process, our pitch decks, everything that we did, it took a while. But what Stephanie said, and she was a guest earlier that we had done the show with, she said there was over 150 people that applied. So to be the final 28, that's like a big deal.
That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So the process for me was like, so this is just kind of eerie. So I got back from, I'm going to back up to, not this last summer, but the summer of 2019, I had just gotten back from a private contract out in Afghanistan. And I got home and then I took, I got Connective Human, which is pretty much stagnant at the time. At the time, we had 2 other business partners. Nothing was really going on with it. So I was like, hey, I got it full force now. Like we were doing team building events here and there, but no one was really like paying a whole lot of attention to it. So I came home and I took it over completely. And now being like the sole owner and everything. We started doing events again, right? We started doing murals, and that's one of our main team building events is we tell stories through mural art, and we've done over like 500 yards worth of murals across Florida really in the last like couple years.
Wow.
So, oh yeah, they're great. They're awesome. And everybody loves it. And we tell stories through art, right? And that's just something that everybody can be a part of and go back and see. And our artist is amazing, Rasta, shout out to him. But so I was doing that. I was like, all right, we're going to do this. I wanted to get into the corporate wellness space, but I was focused on earning revenue and getting the team building out there. And come like late January, early February, we had contracts down with some big companies to do some pretty big murals and stuff. Really, one in Arizona, one in California, and we had one up in the Northeast. And these big companies came back to me in like February and were like, hey, we're not doing anything. And we're like, we're canceling all of our events until further notice. I had to give back some deposits on a few of them. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And then March, obviously the coronavirus hit. So some of these big companies that were international, I think they saw it coming. I think they saw the writing on the wall. So that's what happened to me. And then so all of our business went away. All of our team building events went away overnight. And so I was like, well, we're in a team building where people need to get together and have fun and enjoy themselves. And it just went away because of the coronavirus. So what are we going to do? So I applied. I think I just saw it on Facebook. I was like, oh, cool. They have a grant or a seed fund for nascent or budding businesses. I was like, that's cool. So I applied for it and then just kind of went through like what you said, gave them the numbers, gave them the plan, showed them our clients, showed them the positive impact that we had. And then I put in the growth mindset wellness portion. That's the last thing that I wanted to build out. We got really good at team building events. We got good at PR, getting press, because that's what we have with our events too. And we got really good at doing all that. And I was like, one thing I wanted to do is have a service that we could work with corporations longer than just an event. Like, let's work together for 3 or 4 months and let's teach you this growth mindset thing. And then let's reinforce it with the mural event or whatever. And by doing so and going to the Avalon Fund, they enabled us to do that. They enabled us to build out this online subscription-based platform that I'm so grateful for, and to meet you, right, and to meet the Dirt Master, and then to meet, that's a good company. Complex 7 is a good company. To meet Julia, with the marketing company. They're all just amazing people, and they're all like us. Like, they just want to build a community and see people win. And Stephanie really has spearheaded a lot of that. She's been very busy.
She did.
And
Yeah.
it's just insane how busy she was, but how really the whole Avalon Park staff put this thing together with her spearheading it, I think has been amazing. And I'll just tell you straight up, like, it's been a blessing for our company. It has.
I agree. And just to take it one step back, Bayat, the head of all of Avalon, he's very, very entrepreneurial. He went in and said, okay, I want to be able to start this. I want to be able to help grow entrepreneurs. So he went and said, this is what I want to do. And Stephanie said, okay, we'll be able to make that happen. So he empowers his people at a pretty high level. She got a little teary-eyed when she talked about him and how he is, hey, it's okay if you make a mistake. Don't worry about it. We just move on past it. She felt that she could go anywhere, up in the company, across the company. And she told us that she's been there, it's going on 19 years. Could you imagine being at a place 19 years? Like, you said 9 years in the military? Yeah. It says a lot when anybody, because people don't normally stay. So I think military contracts are 2 years. So how did you do it for 9? I'm kind of
4 to 6. Yeah. So I think my first one was 5, and then my second one was 4.
Oh,
So
okay.
usually 4. Yeah. No, and he has great leadership. I was fortunate enough to meet him just for a little bit, and you can tell the trust and kind of the camaraderie they have in that building.
Yes.
And honestly, that's something that we all strive for. I mean, if we can retain great talent like that, like they have for that long, that's impressive. It just shows his leadership. It shows his leadership,
It does. It absolutely does. And the other thing that she had also mentioned is that through all of this COVID, they haven't had to let anybody go. They've been able to make sure that, the company was strong and did whatever it took to be able to keep the people in place. And that, again, that's back to, the whole leadership that is making that actually happen. That's key.
Yeah, and that's like super neat, like unique. Like, think of all the companies that are just cutting away, and they're like, nope. And then you've got the Avalon Park Group's like, hey, we're gonna do whatever we have to do to keep you here. Like, you're an added benefit. And I think that's a great way to look at how we should build culture. I think there's a lesson there that you just brought out, is like, really, it's when things do get tough is whenever we should really support our people and really back them up. You know what I mean?
She said it's community, and he's very, because he's from Switzerland, he has a mindset of coming from where you work, you live, you play. It should all be integrated together. There was a fourth one. Do you remember what she said? Work, live, place. I don't know. There was a fourth one. But the point is that we need to be realizing that everything that we do, it's building a community, and it is about the relationship. And I found that nice, really nice, because when I go into Avalon, I always think of it being a very small community. And some of those groups that we've gone to already, you and I, they, the ones that are geared around the business development, that's the once a month event. They always are there about how can we support your business?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, because that goes back to the relationship, right? Establishing trust and being able to know that this is a community and we're here to make sure that there's food on the table, that, people are feeling safe. Maslow's theory, right? People feel safe.
Absolutely.
So in the military, tell me what you did exactly. You were a data.
Yeah, so it was what you call like an all source intel analyst. So it's like a jack of all trades. Like, I wasn't a specialist in one form of intelligence. There's multiple forms of intelligence. One that I focused on was on the human intelligence realm, where we worked with a lot of like other humans in other countries to do stuff. So I got really good at that. But my main job for the first 4 years was to prepare our unit to go into combat, basically let them know like what the threat is, where the threat is at, what they're likely going to do to us, recommended courses of action, everything from, doing patrols to doing raids to jumping out of planes. My job was to make sure that I let them know, and I participated in it, what the weather, enemy, and terrain looked like. Like that was my basic job when I first got in, and that was what I did, deploying to Iraq twice and Afghanistan twice while I was in the military. And then I moved into more of a targeting perspective where I did targeting, and supported targeting operations as well. So I worked at so many different levels, all the way from like working at a platoon level and a company level, going out on missions, to working at a higher echelons and even higher echelon levels. I had a unique experience of providing briefings and intelligence to all different types of levels of Marine Corps operations. So that's, a skill set that I was able to learn, is to take in a lot of information, read a lot of information, distill it down and communicate it so someone can make decisions, in very high level, decisions that affect human lives. So that's kind of, I think, the best skill set that I was able to get out of it, is how to find things, what my unique skill set and how to find those things were, and then how to implement them to support operations. So that's kind of what I did in a nutshell, without going into like too crazy detail. But yeah, it was a good experience. I enjoyed it. And I think that's one of the main things that prepared me to step into entrepreneurship, is to be able to look at an environment, analyzing myself and say, okay, what is the need? And then how can I communicate that need to the person that I want to talk to? And I think if everybody has one of those persons on their staff that can really communicate to their audience, you're going to see growth. And
Mhm.
it's always been something that I've been able to do to really just keep my entrepreneurship career going to this point, is that communicative aspect.
Does the military provide a career path for you guys if you want to be an entrepreneur?
So they have some classes that you can take. I never really looked into them. I just went out there and just started it. So I never really looked into it. I'm pretty sure they have some transitional stuff. So I don't want anybody to hold me on this for sure, but I'm pretty sure they do. They do a really good job of keeping you on track in the military, and then their transition programs are getting better. They're getting a lot better than what they used to be.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Hmm.
Okay, well, we're going to take a small break.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat 5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat 5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat 5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat 5 Studios.
Yeah, back to our show. Our show was about internships and remembering someone that gave us a chance. So, what do you predict the future of work looks like for your industry about 5 years from now?
Ooh, but wait, let me just stop. You're going to have that question, but who
Yeah.
that gave you a chance?
Ooh, there's so many people.
It's okay. You can name at least two, maybe three.
There's so many people that have given me a great opportunity. I think I have to start with, before I got into the Marine Corps, a guy by name Don Basham really just kind of saved me. I'd gotten into some trouble before I went into the Marine Corps, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten in the Marine Corps. I would have continued on the path that I was going to. So he actually gave me my first chance to get out of kind of my hometown and get out of some of the bad influences that I was being a part of, and to go to the Marine Corps. So I have to tell him thank you if he ever sees this. And then obviously in the Marine Corps, I've got like 2 or 3 mentors that I want to say thank you to. They're the ones that brought a very uneducated person. Like when I went into the Marine Corps, like I didn't even know how to type on a computer. I didn't even know what a hard drive was.
Oh,
And
wow.
they're like, you don't know. They're like, get the IP address, map the hard drive. And I'm like sitting there like, wait a minute. What the heck is an IP address? Like seriously, I had no idea.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's how far back I was, and I couldn't even type. Like I was like this, like, and in my realm, when you're doing deep, it was bad, and I never spoken in public before, and did any type of public speaking. I was so far behind the power curve, they didn't think I was gonna make it at the time. So it's like,
Wow.
so I got to tell them. I'll end with that. They gave me the confidence and the skill sets that I have now. So.
That's great. It's always nice to remember those people that did give us a chance, because that's how we can always pay it forward, right? Ob- Well, I say obviously, but I think that your business is doing that. It's about instilling the right skills and the right knowledge to be able to implement and hopefully make it a habit so it becomes a lifetime skill.
Sure. Thank you.
Well, Robin, now we go to that question.
Yeah. So what would you say the future of work looks like for your industry about 5 years from now?
Yeah. And keep in
Yeah.
talking about training and learning, but I think that you're also talking about a little bit of nonprofit, and probably we'll throw in your growth mindset too. So I'm going to layer that for you.
Yeah, I mean, so like our core services, is working with, corporations and groups of employees that want to have more communication, less stress, right? Less friction, right? Be more productive, not miss work as much. Like all the work related stressors and issues that come that lose companies money, we go in there and work on that and their number one asset, which is their people, right? By teaching them how their mind works and to be more balanced state so they can be more productive. So that's the first thing. And I think a lot of the wellness programs are online, so that's already happening. And I think remote wellness programs, as everybody saw during the pandemic and even now, it's very crucial. It's critical that remote teams have a way to connect with each other on something that's work related, but not necessarily the stressors of work, to keep them balanced within their organization. So I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. VR obviously is going to be the way. More experiential based things, right?
Immersive, yeah.
Yes, very experiential, meaning like you feel it, right? Because the human body has to internalize it. We can understand things on a surface level, and you understand this, right? Like think about, and even for the interns and anybody listening, like you can get a lot of information, but until you internalize it and it clicks, your ability to use that consistently is almost null and void. You understand it, but you have to internalize it. So I think VR is going to be a way to internalize it. I think experiential things that allow them. I think there's going to be more collaboration, honestly, on like the insurance and wellness space to really integrate, which they're doing a good job, but really integrate and do some cool stuff for employers in the future. I think that's going to be a way forward as well. So like you said, to me, it's going to be through VR. I don't know what other platforms I think could bring
Augmented
that.
reality, I think
Yeah,
you
there
can
you go.
interact through, your devices will be in there.
Yep.
I also feel like, I'm going to go to Star Trek, where you can, do a holograph or Star Wars. We'll use both of those, where you can interact with somebody in that space. So that would be like me. I mean, right now we're meeting by Zoom. I mean, that will become, I think, old school. And I'll be able to push a button, and then my presence will be over there with you, and we can have a more real.
It'll seem real. It'll seem
possible.
real.
Yeah.
It'll seem real.
And those 5 senses, because we need to be able to see, to smell, to be able to hear it, to be able to touch it.
Yep.
Those are all going to be really, really key, because, the more of our senses that we use, the more it ingrains with us.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of these companies like, like we're saving a little bit of cash right now by not running these big offices. So like, how can we remote do this? But we do run into, though, the more remote and the more actual human contact we have, we do run into some issues. So I think there's going to be a fine balance between that, I think, in the workspace going forward. I think there has to be.
Yeah. When I was taking my education classes, when I was going to teach high school, we had 3 ways that people learn. They learn through vision, they learn through listening, and then they learn through touch, kinetics. And that's the experiential side. So again, when you incorporate all of as many senses as possible, it helps to improve and enhance that ability for it to be retained. So we agree with how that would look in this space, but what do you think it's going to look like for nonprofits? Because, we're having some issues where the IRS has been taking away some of the donations. So I think that you're providing a solution where we are helping nonprofits, for-profits are really working together to support them, and it increases their donor base.
Right. And so there's a couple of things. So especially being where we were at here, just outside of Tampa and like St. Pete, like based in that area, everybody's going after pretty much the same dollars in the community. Like there's only so many corporations that have so much dollars to give. Right. So that's number one. And I know that's very like a very basic pragmatic statement, like common sense statement. But when you break it down and break down the layers, you're like, okay, look, how can we give back to those dollars though, as a nonprofit? This is coming from strictly from like a startup nonprofit, even a medium nonprofit that's seen some growth. It's like, yo, what can you do to create something that really gives back to that corporation that donated to you? How can you create that long-term relationship so you have that, right? So your cultures are together, you're one, right? And mine always, again, that's why the pairing corporations with nonprofits through retreats, we always had something that we were serving back to them, meaning, yo, you get this training, you paid for it. It's a donation, but you paid for it. Come check out this growth mindset training with these kids for 4 hours. We're going to run you through 4 workshops. It's going to be great. Let's go. And then we go through it with them. So as a nonprofit, I was always thinking like, I don't want to come, and I would tell some, the Rowdies, sponsored us, and I got to go up there and talk to them, some other big companies that sponsored us. I was able to get in front of them and say, look, what we want to give this back to you. We want to give you these retreats as well. We want you to be a part of it. So long story short, from just a nonprofit perspective, what I think business development persons and persons that are creating their contact strategy, they have to have a couple of things incorporated. The first thing is, what do we have unique that we can serve back to them on a quarterly basis? What can we give to them on a quarterly or bi-quarterly basis? How can we serve back with our unique skill set? So for instance, if you're doing therapy and stuff for kids and you need a donation for it, why don't you offer that to some of their employees? You know what I mean? Like for us, we did fishing tournaments, we did retreats, we did island excursions. We're like, yo, come out to the island with us and hang out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like, come on. So we would offer what we already did back to them, and that's the way that we're able to do it. I think the second component for nonprofits is you have to have an arm that supplies money for you. You have to innovate and create something that brings in a base to cover your base of operations. You have to, because everybody's going after the same dollars. Dollars dry up, they grow depending on the industry that you're in. So that's number two. They need to have something that brings money back in on a to at least cover their costs.
Consistent basis, right? Yeah.
Right. So like some people, they open like for one of the nonprofits that I consult for, that I donate my time to, is like, hey, create like some type of like foster closet, or create some type of something. People are giving away clothes and furniture so much. People giving away furniture is like it's like billions of dollars worth of furniture just getting thrown away every year. Like, go get that, and we can give this furniture to aging out foster kids. They can buy it through the funds that they get, and then you're at least covering some operational costs. So I think every medium nonprofit that's looking to expand needs to innovate into what can they do to bring in dollars for themselves without asking for donations.
Yeah, in kind is always a good way, whether it's time that people are donating, and in kind can be donating furniture, because there's always a cash value to that. The thing that I think is really significant is my background is in nonprofit also. I don't know if I shared that with you, but I did a certificate in nonprofit management, and I've worked with them, goodness, for like 18 years.
Yeah.
And what's significant is that they always need to have a membership list. Those members are about 80% of what supports a nonprofit. So a lot of people think, and it's certainly a misperception, that they can go for grants. Well, grants are not sustainable. Grants are there for temporary to set up a program.
And restrictive. Some of them are restrictive. You got to be careful.
Exactly.
You got to be careful.
Grants, they think grants is a solution, and then they'll say, oh, corporate sponsorships. Well, those get decided right at the beginning of the year when they do their strategic planning. Where are they going to, what organizations are they going to support? What is it that they're going to do? So where does money come from for nonprofits? And it's 80% of it comes from the people who believe in that cause, that support it. So I feel like your idea of being able to bring more people inside of a company and have them connect with a nonprofit, that's very influential. It's like, what is that sock company? Is it Bombay? It's something like that. For every sock that is bought, they donate a black pair of socks, because those are the only way you can get them, to the homeless shelters. And they've distributed millions and millions of pairs of socks because and so that's significant. And then there was something else that I was going to mention in that, but it escapes me. That'll come back later.
No, but to kind of dovetail off of that too, I think, and again, from an entrepreneurship perspective, it can't continue, like you alluded to. It can't be the old way of saying, hey, I'm going to get these corporate dollars. Like, this is what we're going to go after. Can't be the old way of going after grants. They're very restrictive and they take a long time, right? And then
there's no guarantee.
No. And then the nimble operating environment that we have now and how we have to be flexible. I just think if they took a couple of different approaches from their contact strategies, right, to what they can do. And again, like, what can we provide? Like, come to a corporate, if you really want some corporate sponsorships, like we've seen, come to them with the solution that you can provide for their employees.
Yeah.
That's already a part of your programs. That's already a part of your programs.
One of the people that I consulted with was the National NAMI Orlando, so National Association of Mental Illness. And I really enjoyed working with that organization. For 6 months, I was hired to help reorg them. When I was there, that whole health and wellness concept is something that they hadn't done. And it was a program that I had developed. I said, okay, so let's create this as another way to reach people. And you can provide educational programming as a lunch and learn to those businesses, regardless of the size, so that they would know more about what to look for in depression or anything in that space of how to keep their employees, healthy and we'll say safe for sure.
Yeah.
COVID has really done a number on people, and there is some depression that's being experienced and loneliness, I think, because we're made for real relationships. So I think that's another way that mental health is not a sexy topic, but yet it is so important. And I think it's really something that needs to be talked about instead of being shoved to the side, so that it is part of who we are. Anyway, I digress.
No, it is. And I mean, there's a lot of studies out now that, a lot of the experts are predicting, a second wave of it. When no one call it to be an alarmist, not like a mental health crisis, but legitimately mental health hurdles because of a mass majority of the population has experienced some type of loneliness and depression. And the studies are out. The studies are already out there. People can go look at them. We use that as a basis of kind of showing kind of like, hey, to back up our thesis of like, this is why mental health, but more importantly, how can we teach humans to better understand themselves? Why are you feeling so depressed, restrictive, and lonely, right? Why is this happening to you in this moment? Well, let's really break it out, and then let's give you some remedies that can help you right away. And not only that, let's give that to you in a very unique way that connects with you where you need to be, and then allows you to have top of mind awareness for it so you can be more healthy in the future. So, and that's really all it is. And we need that right now. We do need that.
I agree. So you're going to be having some interns. You're one of our intern pursuit employers, so I'm excited to share that. What is it that a typical intern, and you'll have to identify the role they would have, what should they expect to be able to work with you and your company?
So I think right now it's more from like an HR perspective. I think we're definitely looking for, we're definitely looking for somebody that wants to be very process oriented and to take direction and learn. But obviously, I think a big thing too is, we're looking for people that kind of have just the overall entrepreneurship bug. That's like, look, you understand that like you can work on this, but we work at a pretty high paced environment right now as we're growing. So are you okay with learning how to communicate to maybe executives? Would you like to learn how to do that? Would you like to learn how to get in the door to get to the meeting where you'd like to get to executives? Can we show you how to do that? Would you like to do it? How would you like to write? Like, how would you like to write passion pieces about how mental health and spirituality can help people? Because we would love for you to help us with our blog. So really, an intern for us is, yes, you're going to have some roles and responsibilities that we're going to train you on, but to really help them flourish overall and maybe find out some hidden talents maybe that they've been curious about that we can really bring out. Because I'm telling you, especially with humans in general, but especially younger ones that are ambitious in their life, is like, what are you curious about? Because here's the deal. When we tap into curiosity, there's some hidden talents sometimes behind curiosity. There are some hidden talents that our own self-judgments and our own way of looking at ourselves has hindered us. And I've seen that. And that goes just from training teenagers and young adults for so long that like a lot of the things that they're curious about when they get over the initial learning curve, they're actually really good at. And that's kind of like what I'm most interested to do with some of the interns is like, okay, we're going to have some process stuff. We're going to have some stuff that we need on the back end, but what are you curious about? Like, here's what I'm really good at. Are you curious about those things? If you are, you have a whole nother world waiting for you. Like you have a whole nother reality waiting for you on the other side of that. So that's what I want to do is really open up their eyes to say, yo, there's like different realities that you can step into. If you just want to stay process oriented, you could do that. But are you really interested in this? Because if you are, it's going to open up a whole nother world. And that's what I like to see.
And that's what's important to remember is that we as humans, we like to take on something and become good at it. And then we want to be able to take something else on. So yeah, they could come in, be very process oriented and spend a good 5 years getting excellent at it. And then they're going to see, okay, I want to try this. And then you add more, I'm going to say skills to your toolkit of what you can actually bring to the table. I think the, I don't think Americans appreciate it as much as they should, but age does come, hopefully wisdom does come with age. And because you have years of experience in something, what you're getting paid for is that depth of knowledge more than anything. It's, yeah, I know anybody can come and do a skill, but what you're paying for is the accuracy and the speed that comes with it.
Yeah, the efficiency for sure.
So Robin, what's our next question?
The best mentoring advice you received.
Oh, and I'm going to build on top of that. What is the mentoring advice that you pass on now?
Okay, cool. So
Advice that you give out now may be very different from the mentoring that you received earlier.
So the best advice that I got from any of my mentors is just brilliance in the basics, like straight up brilliance in the basics. And that was all external stuff though. That was all get brilliant in external things that you can use your skill sets to get basic at, or get brilliant in those basics. And that'll take you pretty far, right? Use common sense and brilliance in the basics. If you can do that, especially in the intel field, like I'm not gonna lie, like I wasn't the smartest guy, but I was able to really excel and do some cool stuff is because I tried to stay brilliant in the basics, remember the basics, and then just use a lot of common sense. Like don't try to outsmart a problem set. So that's another thing too, especially when you're talking about marketing and communication and business development. Like don't try to outsmart anybody, just talk directly to them.
You know what? I'm going to add though, I think that what's most impressive to me about what you bring in is your passion and your energy. It's really high. So we always have things that we excel at and then things that we're not so strong in. And those are growth opportunities is how I see it. It's like where I was in financial analysis, 10 years ago is like not where I am now. And and I'm going, okay, I'm way more receptive to it than I was 10 years ago because I couldn't care less. So, but you bring such energy and passion. It's infectious. I think I've said that to you before.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just because I finally found what I really enjoy doing. When I finally found myself, like that quiet voice that always said, like, let's go do something impactful, but just aligning that voice with my actions, right? And my words was the biggest thing. The thing that I think the best advice that, hopefully I could give anyone now is our challenges are our best curriculum. I
Oh my
believe that.
goodness. I love that.
And I got that from Ram Dass, right? He had a really cool thing. Like he's an American and he's trained up in a lot of Eastern philosophy and some other cool stuff. But I just saw his documentary, and that's really kind of the model behind this entire corporate wellness program, and really just like the philosophy that kind of, as we grow and we evolve as humans, we have different philosophies that we can take on. It's okay to take on different philosophies and grow with them. And I think looking at our challenges as our best curriculum is probably one of the most impactful things that I think we can teach people right now in this day and age, is because we're constantly meeting ourselves. Isabel, like we're constantly meeting ourselves in hardship over and over again. We're reminded of the things that we've done that got us there. So we're meeting ourselves, right? And we're also meeting ourselves in joy and happiness. Like we understand what got us to this point to be in a balanced and aware state, right? So how do we get to a point to where our challenges are really just a signal point to say, look, man, like you can fix this. Like this is what's in front of you. And you can do it with grace, like you talked about. You can do it with compassion, with patience and humility, and with service to others, right? So that this is all kind of the components that I like to say is like, look, our challenges are our best curriculum. Just know that when you're going through hardship, you're being reintroduced to things, right? And you're being reminded of where you need to go. And then when you're in joy and when we're in happiness, we're just being reintroduced into the eternal balance that we have anyways. So how do we stay in that state? Well, the first thing is to accept that maybe it might be a cool philosophy for you to take on, that your challenges are your best curriculum. And then, okay, since we know that, how do we move forward from there?
I like that. I'm really going to adopt that. So let's go back to that first one too. Brilliance and what was
Brilliance in the basics with some common sense.
Brilliance in the basics. I like that too. Those are going to be my biggest, I think, takeaways today.
Yeah. Oh, and cradle to grave. So like, You know, like when we would get on big intel projects that we had to do, like what I mean is prepare for missions, whether it's targeting or going actual on actual mission, whatever it was, is cradle to grave, meaning it's yours, you started it and you see it through, no matter whether you like it or not. Like what you see it through. This is your baby. Like you birthed it and then we take it to the grave and then we move on. So that was a good one.
What does targeting mean when I know you've used it a couple of times. I'm not sure what it means in the military.
Either targeting targets. I'm trying to look at back of our old doctrinal explanations of really what a target is. So some of the targeteers, if they ever see it, say kill me, but really from a layman's terms is like either persons or facilities.
Oh, so it's like the enemy.
Yeah,
Where they
and their
might be.
capabilities. So whether that's their human capital, their resources, built different things that they use to stop us from completing our mission, we would deem those as targets as long as it's under the law of armed conflict, as long as it meets the rules of engagement and it meets the criteria that we need, then we can go ahead and get approval to put some type of effects on it, whether it's lethal effects, non-lethal effects. You know, we had to go through the gamut of how we would target a certain problem set. So.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. Well, we are at the end of our show. So how can people find you? Tell us your website, you know, what social channels you're active on, contact information if you want to share that. How to
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can go to our website at connectivehuman.com. It's connective with the IVE at the end. You can get us there and you can get us on all the major social networks. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. On our YouTube, you'll see a lot of our cool team building events. So that's pretty cool. We like to hang our videos on there. And then you can just go to our website. You can contact us through there at connectivehuman.com.
Okay. And are you okay with people connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, easy. You'll see me on there. You'll see us on there.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Well, Beau, I want to thank you again for being a guest today. It's been so much fun. I really enjoyed it. How about you, Robin?
I did too.
What was the takeaway for you?
I think it was cool that you took your experience with the fit for, I'm sorry, what was it?
Fit for Truth.
Fit for Truth, yes. You used that experience to create your business, Connective Human.
So I was going to say that, like, if you don't have any money, can I leave your audience with one thing real quick?
Sure.
All right. So here's like what my problem was. Like, I don't really have a whole lot of cash being an enlisted guy in the military. So how do I turn my passion into something that I can do long term? Here's how you do it. I want everybody listening. Go volunteer at a nonprofit that you want to do. Like if like, let's say if a nonprofit provides personal training for free, go volunteer. If it runs a gym or anything like that, go volunteer. If the nonprofit provides tax services, go volunteer. Anyways, go to whatever specific industry you want to do and volunteer. Then tell your story and say, hey, can I tell my story on why I'm volunteering to bring donations in for you? Tell your story and bring in those donations. You're going to learn how to talk to your target market. You're going to learn how to present. And you're going to basically, through those donations, they'll keep you on, right? But if you're running in your own nonprofit, for me, it was like this. I want to go do team building events and retreats and train people for a living. I don't have any money to start up a company. I don't want to take that risk right now with the environment. So we did it the other way around. We asked for donations and that allowed us to train ourselves, right? That was our money for training, but we were training in the form of providing a service. Granted, we had a military background. We had a lot of military experience. People on my board are in the FBI, really high achievers. Like, we know how to get this done, but go find some people, tell your story, get really good at it, see that you have something viable in the marketplace, and then change the name and flip it to something for profit. So that's what we did. I mean, and it's worked so far. So you don't have to have a lot of money to do it. You can literally start that route. Here's the deal though, and here's why it's impactful. It takes a little longer, but you're gonna have a lot better snapshot of what you're good at and what you're capable of. And I'm telling you, that's the biggest thing. Because then when you go into the for-profit space, you're like, I'm gonna outsource all this and I'm only gonna do this. And that was kind of what I learned. So I give that to anybody that's young and coming up that wants to have a way to legitimately do your own thing. And they can do it while they're working for a Fortune 500 company. Go volunteer. And then you can start your side hustle right there. And then
I'm going to tell you, I think that advice is also good for anybody that's transitioning from the military into civilian life.
You're right.
Yeah. So it's not only applicable to those that are young, it's applicable anybody that actually went, I needed to hear this message right now. And you share that. Anyway, well, thanks a lot. And I want to thank Robin for being here today. So
Thank you, Robin.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And this show is going to be airing in January of next year, just so you know when to look for it. But you'll get a
Cool.
notification. We'll let you know when it's going to be aired.
Cool.
All right. Take care,
Thank
Beau.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat5 Studios.